Well, tell us more about industrial grade fluoride being used for the water supply. Tell us more about that.
Well, I had always assumed that the fluoride that we were using to fluoridate the water supply was pharmaceutical grade sodium fluoride. Then I found out that the majority of the fluoride that's used in fluoridating water supplies in Canada, I got a federal government document documenting it. The majority of it is sodium or hydrofluorosilicylic acid or sodium silicates, fluorosilicates, and these are added to the water supply to produce 1 part per million fluoride in the water. They dilute this stuff down to 1 part per million. Apparently this dilutes all the contaminants that are in there down to levels that are allowed by the EPA. George Glasser showed me a list of all the contaminants in one of the articles he wrote, and I could not believe that we were actually dumping lead and arsenic and even radium, which is produced in the process of making this pollutant. From what I understand, the pollutant is recovered from the smokestack scrubbers in the phosphate fertilizer industry, and it's very rich in fluoride, very toxic, but of course when you dilute it into the water supply it goes down to 1 part per million and supposedly is quite safe. My concern is that we're building up the contaminants in our system. We know that lead accumulates in soft tissues, the brain and bone. We know that actually lead accumulating in teeth is susceptible to dental decay. My concern is also the radium contaminants that are found in hydrofluorosilicylic acid. This is known now from the phosphate fertilizer industry that when you make phosphate fertilizer, you release some of the radium from the earth, and this now gets recovered in this industrial grade fluoride that they recover from the smokestacks. They're putting this stuff in our water. And then I found an article saying that radium is one of the main reasons why we have osteosarcoma in Canadian children, an article written by Finkelstein showing the connection between radium in the water and osteosarcoma in children.
How many dentists in Canada do you think are aware that this material, this fluoride that is put into the drinking water, actually is this industrial hazardous waste? Do you think most of them are aware or unaware?
Most. If the only person teaching preventive dentistry didn't know about it, do you think anybody else would know? No, I don't think even a single dentist knew until it started becoming more of an open issue because of the anti-fluoridationists.
When you talk to other dentists and they hear about this being an industrial waste product, does it faze them at all, or what's the reaction?
The first reaction is prove it.
Yeah. They don't believe it.
They don't believe it.
No. What is dental fluorosis and what causes it?
Dental fluorosis is simply the malformation of dental enamel. And actually, dental fluorosis has affected not only the enamel but also the dentin. The dentin is the inside layer of the tooth. The surface layer is the enamel, and that's what we see. We see white spots on kids' teeth, and that's what we call dental fluorosis. The way it forms, basically, is that the fluoride interferes with the development of the tooth. I did 10 years worth of research in my laboratory studying tooth development, so I know how teeth develop. And Pam Den-Beston and a few others have been looking at the effects of fluoride on tooth development. And we now believe that there are several mechanisms involved. Fluoride could be inhibiting the enzymes, the serine proteinases that are degrading the final traces of proteins that are left behind in the teeth. The proteins, if they're left behind on the surface of the enamel, will take up space, and it won't allow the crystals to grow to this beautiful, shiny luster that you see normal enamel presents itself. You see these white spots or splotches or lines. In more severe fluorosis, you actually see the surface layer flaking off. You see brown spots. The classical Colorado brown stain, we're now seeing that in North America in fluorosis area, in areas of fluoridated cities where kids are adding to the fluoride exposure with toothpaste. We're actually getting brown stain, the Colorado brown stain, in healthy kids. Now, it may not be a big concern to them, but the current concern I have, obviously, is that they've got too much fluoride in their system anyway.
Well, that's actually my next question, because certainly in America, the various government agencies now dismiss dental fluorosis as a cosmetic effect. That it's, polish it off or do something with it, and it hasn't done any harm to the person. Could you address that question? Is it just a cosmetic effect? Should we be concerned about dental fluorosis for other reasons?
Well, number one, simply a cosmetic effect is a brush off. What basically they're saying is that we're willing to accept a certain amount of cosmetic problems to prevent decay. Well, if the fluoridation isn't preventing decay anymore, and there's now plenty of evidence in the last 5 years that it's not preventing decay anymore, then the fluorosis that's being produced is now being treated for many different, in many different ways. It's being treated by surface polishing, by bleaching, by porcelain veneers. If you actually estimate how much work is being done on kids with dental fluorosis, we're treating way more teeth for the problem of dental fluorosis than we would treat if there was a marginal increase in dental decay from taking fluoride out of the water. Most of the studies now show that the fluoridated cities have twice the incidence of dental fluorosis, and yet the decay rate is no different. Number two is that the fluoride is accumulating in these people. And I've got lots of evidence to show you that even if you stop the fluoride exposure at a very early age, the kids still get fluorosis in their back teeth because the bone is loaded with fluoride. Their system develops or picks up so much fluoride from the overexposure from the water and the toothpaste and other sources from the diet that the bone has too much fluoride. The bone is the source of the fluoride that causes the dental fluorosis. Now, because they have so much fluoride in the bone, we have more concerns about tooth development, delayed tooth eruption, malocclusion, possible bone fracture, premature skeletal development or maturation. There are many concerns now that are appearing from research that fluoride in kids in their bone system is not good. Add to that the risk for osteosarcoma.
Explain what osteosarcoma is.
Bone cancer. Now, I have a serious concern about bone cancer. We're starting to see some publications now that links fluoridated cities with bone cancer. There may be a number of explanations for this. We now know that fluoride reduces testosterone. There may be a connection between this lowering of testosterone and osteosarcoma in young males. I have a concern because nobody has yet measured the amount of fluoride that the bone cells are exposed to when they're turning bone over. If kids have higher fluoride levels in their bone and their bone cells are exposed to those higher fluoride levels, we know from in vitro studies in test tubes and in culture, that fluoride at higher concentrations are cytotoxic, that they cause damage, they can cause cancer, these higher levels can cause all kinds of damage to the cell. So these bone cells are being exposed to likely higher levels than normal. And nobody has yet measured right locally, right next to the cell, how much fluoride these cells are being exposed to.
Tell us about your study where you looked at the levels of fluoride in the bones of Montreal people and the bones of people in Toronto. Explain where this study came from and what you found. I got interested in the fluoride accumulation in bone, and that's one of the reasons I was concerned about water fluoridation. When I discovered that